Everyone muted? Perfect. All right, it is 6:04. I'll call this organizational meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Brian Anderson.
Here.
Spencer Anderson.
Here.
Amy Levy. Here. Sean Levy.
Present.
Megan Miller. Present. Greg Schneider.
Present.
Joanne Winfield. All members are present except Joanne Winfield.
Okay, may I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved and properly second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, so first order of business is the election of president. I will now open the floor for nominations for president.
This is Megan Miller, and I would like to nominate Sean Levy.
Sean, do you accept?
I accept.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations for the office of president? And one last time, are there any other nominations for the office of president? Hearing none, I close the nominations for office of president. Do we want to do a ballot or do we want to do a vote of acclamation?
Can we do a vote of acclamation?
Are there any opposed to a vote of acclamation? Hearing none, congratulations, Sean Levy. You are now board president. Congratulations. As board president, I will now turn over the remainder of the agenda to you.
Okay. So we are at 2B, election of vice president. Nominations are now open for vice president.
I nominate Megan Miller.
You accept? Okay, Megan accepts. Are there any other nominations for vice president? Second time, any other nominations for vice president? Okay. And a third, any other nominations for vice president? Okay, I'll close nominations and also do this by acclamation and cast one vote by acclamation for Megan Miller for vice president. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. We're golf clapping. All right. All right. Nominations are now open. 2C, election of clerk. Board clerk.
This is Megan Miller. I'd like to nominate Greg Schneider.
Greg Schneider, do you accept?
Yes.
Okay. Nominations are open. Are there any other nominations for board clerk? Okay, any other nominations for board clerk? Any other nominations for board clerk? All right, so I'm going to close nominations and we'll cast one vote by acclamation for Greg Schneider. All right, Greg, you are the board clerk. All right, we're moving. 2D, election of secretary. Are there any nominations for secretary, board secretary?
I'd like to nominate Michelle Shope.
Okay. Michelle, do you accept? Okay, she accepts. Any other nominations for board secretary? Once. Any other nominations for board secretary? Twice. And any other nominations for board secretary? All right. So we'll cast one vote by acclamation for Mrs. Shope to become board secretary. Congratulations. And thank you. All right. All right. 2E, treasurer. Are there any nominations for treasurer?
I nominate Brian Anderson for treasurer.
Mr. Anderson, do you accept?
I do.
Okay. Nominations are open. Are there any other nominations for treasurer? Any other nominations for treasurer? All right, and a third time, any other nominations for treasurer? All right, seeing that there are none, we'll have one vote by acclamation for Mr. Brian Anderson, treasurer. Congratulations. Nominations are now open for the office of parliamentarian. Are there any nominations?
This is Megan Miller, and I'd like to nominate Amy Levy.
Amy Levy, do you accept?
I do.
Okay. Are there, Amy Levy accepted. Are there any other nominations for parliamentarian? Any other nominations for parliamentarian? Any other nominations for parliamentarian? All right. So we cast one vote by acclamation for Amy Levy, parliamentarian. Congratulations. All right. All right. We get board appointments. 3, a CISA representative. Board member Schneider, will you serve as our CISA 2 representative?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Committee appointments. 3B. Board member Spencer Anderson, will you serve as chair of Business Operations and Finance Committee?
I can.
Okay. And board member Brian Anderson and Jawan Winfield, will you serve on the Business Operations and Finance Committee?
I will.
Okay. Board member Miller, will you serve as the chair of Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services?
Yes, I will.
Okay. And board members Schneider and Winfield, will you serve as members of the Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services Committee?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Amy Levy, board member, will you serve as chair of Policy Committee?
Yes.
Okay. And board members Schneider and Spencer Anderson, will you serve as Policy Committee members?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. So our governors committee is made up of the president, the chair of the Business Operations and Finance, and the Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services chair. So as board members Spencer Anderson and Miller will be serving on the governors committee, and our Human Resource Committee is a committee of the whole. So all of us serve together on that committee. Agency appointments, 3C. Board member Miller, will you serve as our WASB delegate?
Yes, I will.
Board member Levy, will you serve as our WASB alternate?
I will.
Board member Levy, will you serve as our legislative liaison?
Yes.
Board member Brian Anderson, will you serve as our TIF and TID representative?
I will.
Okay. And item 4A, appointments. The superintendent makes these appointments.
Thank you, Board President. So first appointment is Park Recreation Conservation Advisory Commission. Board President Levy, would you serve as our representative?
I will.
Thank you. Next appointment is Alcohol Beverage Licensing Control. Board Member Anderson, would you serve as a representative?
I will.
And a new appointment as part of our academic steering committee for the academy structure. Board Member Schneider, would you be our representative to that committee?
I will.
Thank you. Turn it back over to Board President.
All right, thank you. We're not at 5A, adjournment. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. And that's unanimous. We are now adjourned. Going to call the April 26, 2022 Governance Committee meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. Michelle, can we have a roll call, please?
Spencer Anderson,
Present.
Sean Levy,
Present.
and Megan Miller.
Present.
All members are present.
We have a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Approval of the minutes for April 12, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. 2A, board communication.
So the background on this, and I think Dr. Kieser is going to jump in as well, as over the last few months, some board members and community members had expressed an interest in hearing more about what is going on at the board level. And in our work with Mr. Howick, we had talked about budgeting some time at the end of those meetings to be reflective about what we had done for the last month, to talk about what went well and what we could improve upon. And so this was an item for discussion to see if there's any potential to use that time in order to compile some sort of like summary effort to communicate out more of the work of the board so that the community is more informed.
And to build upon that conversation, using the same format as the board development, and so this kind of will flow into the next agenda item, having that roundtable discussion and perhaps having a truncated regular board meeting so that we would create a space where we could have topics in a free-form discussion quite in the same manner. And then on the days that we would want to do actual board development, we would substitute that time for the board development time.
Okay. Board Member Anderson, you have anything at the time?
I don't have anything really to add to it, but my thoughts behind it is if we're going to be, it's good for us to be communicating out exactly what we're doing as a board, just so that it keeps everything clear, and then there's no questions or doubts on what we're actually trying to do and on what our goals or intentions are.
Right. One of the things I'm thinking about in that space, because I know we've had different conversations, is one, as a board, when we communicate that that we're communicating the positions of where we stand as a board, the voice of all seven of us. But we also, too, like I think what we see is from that board development, that we need that open forum sometimes to kind of come to a consensus and have those conversations. So like I said, if there's months where we're doing board development and that's creating a conversation at a table, and then, like I said, in that month, there's some different actions that are taking place, then we have a space to communicate where, we're not just speaking as 1/7, but that we have complete statements. Because I do think that there always can be more communication, but being specific in what we're saying and what we're doing, so that there are not misunderstandings or unmet expectations because we're not communicating out enough about what is happening. But like I said, just take some time to kind of find the right vehicle for that communication or structure to bring that about.
And I would add that I think some of the changes that we're starting to see as a result of the work we've done this past year with board development and meetings ending, and I don't want to have us move backwards by making this statement, but having meetings ending before 9 o'clock, if that trend continues, I think we can create a situation in which we would have more business being done at one of the two board meetings and then be able to have a lighter business section of a regular board meeting, which would create the space. Because I know one of the things we've worked very hard at is eliminating special meetings, with the exceptions of things like the budget meeting, expulsions, and so forth, where we have to schedule those outside of regular business meetings, but staying true to those two meetings, the first and third week of each month. I feel that if we continue on this trajectory and doing this work, we would be able to create that space where we could have a discussion and then allow that discussion to be more free-formed and have it either time limited, or we could have it in terms of topic limited and say, well, when we get to a natural break within a topic, we can say, we'll call the meeting to an end.
All right. Oh, board member.
Oh, I just wanted to say I fully support Dr. Kieser's thoughts about how we should take advantage of this ability to restructure our meetings in that way. I was curious to see if there was any interest in the board, or at least in the governance committee here, if our discussion yielded something fruitful that we thought was worth communicating. So not like every whatever, we're going to do this, but if we felt like something was discussed that we would like to share or spotlight, is there any interest in us having like a potential board like update spot, maybe that we could just like put some bullets or something together, some language together that Dr. Kieser could include in his Sunday communication, or that could be highlighted on the social media piece as well? I don't know if there's interest for that or not, so I just wanted to throw the idea out there.
Well, when you raise it like that, one of the things that makes me think about is like how right before the listening session, you kind of communicated SRO. I think we talked about there was referendum talk. I mean, there were some clarifications there. So sometimes for me, when I'm thinking of like that communication, it's that, you know, sometimes people are not watching meeting to meeting the things that are happening, or even reading all the articles that are accurate, that are printing what has happened. And sometimes like you know, as you did before that meeting, a restatement of kind of where we're at just kind of helps people pick up to where things are.
I think that's an awesome connection. And I'm just thinking, I wonder if, because at first I was sort of like, well, only if, I don't want to add another sort of to-do or like an obligation, but I wonder if it would be logical for us to almost do like a quarterly update that would coincide maybe ahead, whether it's like a couple weeks ahead or a week ahead of when we were going to do those kind of listening sessions. Because I think we agreed to do, or like open up an opportunity for community listening sessions quarterly. Maybe we kind of keep a running track of like what fruitful things do we discuss in those reflective times in that open forum, however it's structured, that we'd like to share. Maybe the board clerk or the secretary could kind of we could keep track of that and say like, let's add that to the whatever, like the update list or something. And then maybe there's like a cadence of the quarterly update from the board comes out. It's communicated in the ways that we're accustomed to communicate with folks. And that way it's out there circulating. And we could additionally then clarify at those community listening sessions that we had already talked about.
So I think that where we're at is that we'll just kind of continue to kind of evolve that. It'll probably show up on an agenda as we discuss that somewhere in between there. But just for me, like I said, the communication, I would look at it like when we're in the board development at the table, that's the space where we're speaking as one of 7, but that this board communication is what all 7 of us have, agreed to. It's a statement of a position where we're at. And then then we can also use that board development time at the table to kind of work that out if there's something to come.
Right. So just to clarify what I'm hearing you say, and let's make sure I'm clear on it because I think it's awesome. So like during our board development, we're working in a space for discussion to build board cohesion where each of us are individually sharing thoughts and then they come together cohesively through discussion as like sort of like our board message, so that everybody's sort of on the same page and everybody's calibrated. So once we're calibrated, it's possible that, like you said, it'll evolve, there are at least potential topics or items that we would identify to share out more information to the community, possibly, like we'll see how it goes, to communicate ahead of those listening sessions to add clarity. And the reason that I want to come back to that point is that I think that there's been a lot of unnecessary discord and negativity as an outcome of maybe like some lack of understanding. And it makes me sad, like as a community member and a board member, to see people just distressed by things that aren't necessarily real. So I just want to make sure that we're mindful of, if we have this really great opportunity to calibrate and build cohesion, that we identify items that we think are important to share out. Because I think the communication has to go both ways. Like we receive information from the community, we also should be putting information as appropriate. That's what I'm trying to feel out where the appropriate lane is out into the community, as more of like a customer service-y kind of mindset, right?
Right. Yep, that's an accurate summary of where I was at. I don't know, Board Member Schneider or Board Member Winfield, I know you're not on the committee, but since you're here, I just want to recognize you. Are you understanding kind of what we're saying and the general agreement there? Okay. All right. So then we will move on. We'll close this. Dr. Keyser, when you're saying time and topic, you're kind of thinking like on ESPN, pardon the interruption, where you got so much like the sports talk shows. All right, it's time to move on to that one now. So we'll go to 2B, board development.
So with board development, one of the things that certainly we talked about in terms of the transition was continuing that conversation and cadence around board development. Certainly, Board Member Miller and I this past year have been working very closely with Drew Howick, and he has expressed his interest in continuing to help us develop and find our voice and find our cadence. I just wanted to provide the opportunity for our governance committee to weigh in and say, to what degree do we still want to continue to work with Mr. Howick, and if we want to continue on a particular cadence, if that is monthly. For a while, we were meeting monthly, the second board meeting of the month, or do we want to try to do in a different cadence than that? So I wanted to open up for discussion. Thoughts, feedback, questions, concerns?
I think our work has been beneficial, and then, like you said, we have collective commitments. We did roles and responsibilities, a clarifying space. I know that as we move into, we talk about like evaluation with CISA 6. There are some other things that are coming. That I do think that as we continue to, one of the things I'm thinking about is as we come up to Board Member Anderson, Brian, Schneider, and Miller having 3-year terms, Board Member Anderson, Spencer, and myself in this 2-year term, and then Board Member Levy and Winfield in this 1-year term. That we're kind of in that cycle now, that to continue to build our capacity so that the longest serving board members have had positive experiences and productive experiences. As we go through, what I was thankful for in our conversation for our new board members, Anderson and Winfield, to say that they felt welcomed and that they felt like they were joining a board that had done some things. And so I think that, the board development is that space for us to continue to demonstrate for ourselves and for our community that we're working on the things that helps us get the work done. Because when we think about it, for our role, we're not teaching the kids English or math, and it's definitely easier to get the 7 of us in line to do the work that we need to do, the work that only the 7 of us can do in the district. And I think that development has helped us find the clarity in that space. The exact topics we may need him to cover, like I said, again, looking at our annual board development. I know I would look at our topics in that space. I know we'll be going over that on school perceptions, but just in the 1 year, and it is about the change of people, but the way that we responded and answered the questions about, respect for each other and use, respectful discourse, that's a positive change, and that happened over a year. So I would think we should kind of continue to work our way through that annual development tool as a focus of finding things for the 7 of us to work on together in that time.
You bring up a couple of good points. So working with school perceptions next week, we are scheduled to have them come back. So Rob from School Perceptions will be back with us for a 3rd installment to give an update on the board self-assessment and where we are this spring as opposed to when we took it last fall. The CISA 6, moving to that new tool will be about a 3-hour training, which we will need to schedule a separate time for doing that because it will be targeted time to get acclimated to a new assessment tool for both the board and myself, and then getting into a cadence for that. And the cadence for that tool is built around kind of quarters, but they are willing to and open to hearing from us as to how we want to utilize the tool and then make adjustments around that. Because I know we wanted to do 2 check-ins, one in January and one in the end of the year. And then certainly the idea of building capacity. So Drew certainly has that skill set, but then also that I hear the conversation about through the self-assessment, there might be specific areas as a board we've identified that we want to do some more development. So we might even reach beyond that, whether it be a book study, whether it be other individuals who have specialized knowledge in a particular area that can help build capacity for the board. Again, that idea of the collective commitments is establishing a foundation for building a culture that we are embarking upon, and every year that we have consistency, we are strengthening and deepening that culture, and that was the goal and outcome for this past year, where I would, from my perspective, feel we were successful. Now it's what do we do for that next step?
If I may, I'm curious. I'm 100% in favor of continuing that work, and I would be curious about what maybe part of our work going forward with Mr. Howick would be to ask him what he feels is an appropriate benchmark for like the next year in, or like, I know we haven't been with him for a full year, but I guess this next year with this seated board, from, I guess we'll see him in May, right? So I know that's what we're deciding. I'm assuming we'll see him in May to next April. I think I'd like to hear his thoughts for how to include him in the conversation. Like, how does he see this evolving in a way that's beneficial and produces growth?
And I would say the same thing. I think that's part of the question is we left it open-ended with Mr. Howick about going into May, and DeCanes has been board president and superintendent have met with him to establish where we are and what the next steps would be, and that certainly is the conversation at this point as the governance committee organizing the structure for the board work moving ahead, if that's a natural next step, and then also building into the fact that next week at the beginning of May we'll be hearing that board self-assessment, which will definitely give us additional feedback as to areas that we've shown growth and areas in which we may want to address next.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. There's, I guess, in the conversation in between now and then, we'll sit down with Superintendent Kieser and Drew and kind of have some more of that dialogue, and just say that I would agree that we will come back with him to begin with, and then it'll get it, on the agenda. We'll figure that out in between.
Okay.
Is there on this item from any other members? Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll move to item 3A, future meeting dates. Our next meeting date will be Tuesday, May 24th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. Okay, I thought we're usually having these ones later, or these were after the.
I would be in favor of meeting later if there's consensus with the committee.
I guess the question is, we have other meetings that day, or?
Typically, we put it on the fourth Tuesday of the month so that it didn't coincide with any other committee meetings. It's also one that if we didn't have an agenda item for the governance meeting, it was one that could be postponed and pushed to the next month.
Mm-hmm. So there was the only meeting on that Tuesday?
Only meeting on that Tuesday.
All right.
So it can be, again, this is kind of a legacy. It can be moved and adjusted. So this doesn't hold us to that time. This is just where our natural time is. But until it gets posted, that's when the time will be official.
Gotcha. Next meeting date, Tuesday, May 24th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. And then is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and properly second that we adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you.